This ain't just rap beef, it's karma in designer shoes. 50 Cent thought he was untouchable. He clowned Rick Ross, brought Big Meech's name into the dirt, and flexed on everyone like the streets were his personal playground. But now, the streets, clapping back, and it's coming from the most unexpected place, the legacy of Big Meech himself. People close to Meech have been sending subliminal shots, and the whispers ain't whispers no more. Screenshots, subtweets, IG lives. It's getting loud, and 50. He ain't laughing now. From the BET Awards hallway drama, 2 leaked messages from inside. This ain't just shade, it's a storm. And the same man who once said, "I run New York," might just be running from this smoke. Because when Meech's circle starts mocking you in public, that Rostus just came back hard. Long before the name Big Meech became a cultural shorthand for street power, loyalty, and legacy, it was a name tied to silence, to fear, to reverence. Nobody just casually threw Meech's name around unless they wanted the heat that came with it. But somehow, 50 Cent didn't care. Or maybe he thought he was above the rules. Either way, it all started with one moment, one diss. One decision that would age like milk in the middle of a summer heat wave. Back in the early 2010s, 50 Cent was already the architect of chaos. He wasn't just rapping, he was publicly humiliating people. Whether it was Ja Rule, Fat Joe, or even Young Buck, if you were on the wrong side of 50, you were getting clowned. Badly then came Rick Ross, and when 50 found out that Ross used to be a correctional officer, he didn't just diss him. He tried to erase his entire credibility. Mixtapes, cartoons, baby mama interviews. Ross was under siege, and 50 loved every second. But in one of those infamous disses, 50 brought up something that struck way deeper than rap. He mocked Ross for acting like Big Meech. That line meant as a jab at Ross's persona wasn't just a diss. It was a disrespect to a real street legend. One who had nothing to do with the beef. One who was behind bars, fighting for his life and his legacy. Big Meech, co-founder of BMF, was already a myth by then. But his name carried real-world weight. Loyalty to Meech wasn't about clout, it was about respect, fear, and history. So when 50 used that name to attack another man, a lot of folks went quiet. Others, they took notes. Because even if Meech wasn't out here to respond, there were plenty of people who would remember that moment. And apparently, they did. Fast forward a few years, 50 starts working on a project that changes everything. BMF, the series. It's cinematic, raw, and centered around Big Meech's rise. The same man whose name 50 once threw into the fire is now the center of his latest TV empire. Suddenly, 50 is producing, promoting, and benefiting from the Meech mythos. He's attaching himself to the very same story he once ridiculed in a diss track to the outside world. This looked like growth, reconciliation, maybe even respect. But behind the scenes, some folks never forgot. Because the streets don't move like Hollywood. Loyalty doesn't expire when the cameras roll. And certain people, especially those still loyal to Meech and the BMF legacy, started to question what 50 was really doing. Was he honoring the legacy, or was he just cashing in on a name he once mocked? That question started to bubble quietly, then loudly, as 50 began posting about BMF nonstop, red carpet events, behind-the-scenes clips, and of course, plenty of shots at Rick Ross along the way. But Ross wasn't pressed. Not publicly. He stayed cool, flexed success, and let time do its work. Until recently, when everything flipped. Over the past few months, new tension began to rise. People close to Big Meech, both inside and outside the system, started dropping cryptic posts. No names, but the tone was obvious. Subtle jabs about loyalty, side eyes toward people profiting off the pain of others. Even small likes and reposts that seemed harmless on the surface, but started painting a picture. And then came the mockery. A live video surfaced, one that reportedly featured someone close to Meech's old circle cracking jokes about Hollywood, Meech and TV gangsters. While no names were dropped, viewers connected the dots immediately. The target, 50 Cent, and the implication, he ain't one of them. He never was. It was the first public fracture in what 50 likely thought was a solid alliance. Then came the real blow. Screenshots started circulating online, an alleged DM between someone in Meech's circle and Rick Ross. It wasn't confirmed, but the tone was clear. Laughter, disrespect, and the words that sent social media spinning. Guess karma works after all. Now fans were confused. Was the diss coming full circle? Did Ross just get silent support from Meech's people? Or was this all just internet noise? 50 didn't comment directly, but his silence deafening, because the 50 of old would have been on Instagram within an hour, posting memes, making jokes, dragging people with his usual brand of cruelty. But this time, nothing. The man who once declared himself the king of the internet beef had nothing to say. And that silence made people wonder. Was 50 finally feeling the weight of his past? Not just because of a diss track, not just because of Ross, but because the name he once used to clown another man was now clowning him. And that's the kind of twist no one saw coming. Especially not Curtis Jackson. Especially not after everything he built. Especially now that Big Meech's name had become bigger than rap. It wasn't a press release. It wasn't a sit-down interview. There wasn't even a direct quote with 50's name in it. The energy, the subtext, it was loud enough to wake the dead. Let's be clear. Big Meech didn't need to clap back with bars. He's behind bars. But his silence never meant he wasn't watching. And the people who've remained loyal to him on the outside and inside started moving in a way that spoke volumes. The streets began whispering again. But this time, it wasn't about the next drop or the next court date. It was about how 50 Cent switched up and how it looked like the karma clock just hit midnight. Remember? 50 used Big Meech's name in a diss to belittle Rick Ross. Now fast forward, and he's profiting off Meech's story like it's his own. It rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. At first, they kept it quiet. No one wanted to publicly disrespect someone as powerful as 50. But then, things started leaking. It started with a clip, a late-night IG live from a man who allegedly did time with Meech. The man's name wasn't important, but his words. They spread like wildfire. While sipping from a red cup, he casually said, "Some of these dudes out here acting like they got Meech in they phone, like he calling them for advice. That boy don't know y'all." No name dropped. But everyone knew exactly who that was aimed at. The live was reposted, dissected, broken down on Twitter threads and Clubhouse rooms. And the vibe was the same across the board. 50 might have overplayed his hand, but it didn't stop there. Soon after, another video started making rounds. This time, it was a phone call, allegedly recorded between a member of Meech's circle and someone who used to be affiliated with Guionet. You could barely hear it through the static, but there was laughter. And one line came through loud and clear. He really think directing a few episodes make him family. That boy Hollywood, not BMF. And that right there was the dagger. Because for 50, this wasn't just about the BMF show, was about being accepted into the culture that birthed it. That respect, that loyalty, that street stamp that can't be bought. And now, he was being laughed at for even thinking he had it. Meanwhile, Rick Ross was quiet. Too quiet, which only made things worse, for 50 Ross hadn't responded directly. Since the days of Valley of Death or Mafia music, but he didn't have to. Because the people Meech trusted started making it clear they weren't laughing at Ross anymore. They were laughing with him. Twitter picked it up fast. One post went viral. 50 turned BMF into a whole series just to get dissed by the real ones involved. That's wild. Another read, Meech ain't never call you fam. Y'all just share camera credits. And then came the one that 50 probably saw, 'cause it came from someone close to the BMF set. Funny how the loudest dude in the room always ends up the punchline. No lie, for a man like 50 who thrives off control and image, this had to sting more than any bar Ross ever wrote. This was real-time rejection. From the culture, from the streets. From the very people whose lives he claimed to be honoring. And the disrespect didn't stop at words. There was a party in Atlanta, private invite-only birthday bash for one of Meech's close associates. A few people from the original BMF family showed up. And guess who wasn't on the guest list? 50 Cent. What made it worse? One of the guests wore a shirt that read, "Loyalty can't be scripted." No one had to explain it. That t-shirt said more than an entire diss track ever could. People took pics with the shirt, posted them, tagged it, and waited for a response. But 50 stayed quiet, and it's not like he didn't see it. 50's always online, always watching. He just couldn't say anything without opening up the floodgates, because the moment he denied it, the receipts would flood in. Let's not forget, this is the same man who once hired private investigators to expose his enemies, who aired out personal videos of his rivals. But now, when he became the subject of street mockery, nothing. Even his usual allies went quiet. No G-Unit loyalty, no reposts, no clapping back on his behalf. Because everyone could feel it. The power had shifted, and Ross. He knew the moment was his. He didn't speak on it. But what he did do was post a throwback of his BMF blowin' money fast video on Instagram, tagging it with "legendary for a reason." He didn't need to say 50's name. He didn't need to mention the diss, because the streets were already talking for him. Fans flooded the comments. Guess we know who Meech's circle really respects now. 50 did all that just to get clowned. The real ones never needed a series. They lived it. And it's that last line that cuts the deepest, because 50's show is good. It's critically acclaimed, well acted, produced with love. But the streets don't care about cinematography. They care about loyalty, authenticity, legacy, and when the people who live that life say you don't belong. There's no director's cut that can fix that. So now, 50's stuck in a strange place. Too proud to apologize. Too connected to walk away. Too exposed to keep pretending. He made a name by controlling narratives. But now, he's part of one he can't rewrite. And that narrative is simple. He once used Meech's name to clown someone else. Now, the people Meech left behind are clowning him. It's poetic, it's brutal, and it's only getting louder by now. 50 Cent wasn't just trending, he was cornered. And the most dangerous thing for a man like 50 isn't a diss record. It's losing control of the narrative. That's where he lives. That's what gave him power. But suddenly, his moves were being questioned. His loyalty was under fire. And the streets, the very essence of the BMF mythos, weren't silent anymore, so the question on everyone's mind. What was Rick Ross going to do with this moment? He had every reason to go nuclear. He could have dropped a scathing diss track, a viral freestyle, or even hopped on an interview and let loose. But Ross, ever the businessman, played it cool. And that move, it made everything 10 times worse for 50. Instead of ranting, Ross began posting cryptic, elegant reminders of who he was. One post featured an old photo of him and Meech back in the early Miami days. No caption, just history. Another was a clip of a recent show where he performed BMF, and the crowd lost their minds. Ross wasn't clapping back, he was ascending, and the silence from 50 deafening. For the first time, people began publicly asking, is 50 scared to respond, or just out of moves? This wasn't the 50 Cent we knew, the one who lived for a public feud. Instead, he seemed calculated, cautious, careful, and that change didn't sit right with fans who remembered the 50 that used to call out rappers by name on Hot 97, drag people in music videos, and bring an entire label to war. So what changed? A lot of people think it goes deeper than rap. One theory started circulating, and it picked up speed fast. People close to BMF allegedly sent private DMs to some high-level producers and publicists who had worked with 50 on the BMF series. These messages didn't make threats. They asked questions. Was Meech consulted on this plotline? Did 50 clear this with the family? Who's benefiting from this portrayal? Screenshots of these messages began leaking to hip-hop blogs and Reddit threads. Nobody could verify them 100%, but the style, tone, and timing all seemed too on point to be fake. Suddenly, 50's empire looked shaky. Because if the people closest to BMF started publicly challenging the narrative, the entire foundation of the show could get dragged into controversy. Some fans even went back and re-watched early episodes. They started questioning everything. Was this really authentic? Was 50 ever close to Meech? Or did he just capitalize on a myth? The internet, brutal as always, coined a new term for it: Meech-sploitation, and that term stung. Because 50 had prided himself on telling stories with depth, power. Raising Kanan, BMF. These weren't just shows, they were cultural blueprints. But now, the narrative was flipping. And Rick Ross, he wasn't just sitting pretty, he was seizing. The opportunity, Ross began teasing a new track online. No name, no release date. Just a studio clip and a tweet that read, "The boss never begged to be accepted. He just built his own kingdom." Fans went wild. Comments exploded. "This about 50, you know it is. He's coming, and it's going to be nasty. Meech blessed him years ago. Now he's returning the favor." And just like that, the momentum officially shifted. But it didn't stop with Ross. A few days later, an exclusive interview dropped on a smaller platform, not Hot 97, not Breakfast Club, but a newer YouTube street channel run by former affiliates of BMF. In it, one of Meech's longtime friends spoke bluntly about 50. He didn't slander him. He didn't yell, but he did say this: "You can't narrate a story you weren't a part of. You can't claim loyalty to a man whose loyalty you questioned years ago in a diss track." Some of us don't forget. Some of us don't forgive, especially when the name you mocked is the name that made you millions. That clip hit harder than a diss record because it wasn't entertainment. It was real, and 450. That kind of backlash can't be spun into a meme, even within his own fan base. Questions started popping up. People began noticing how the BMF promotions had slowed down, how 50 wasn't mentioning it as much, how even Lil Meech had stopped tagging 50 in as many posts. Nothing confirmed, but in this game, perception is everything. So what's next? That's the real tension now. Because even though 50 hasn't responded publicly, everyone's watching, waiting, anticipating either a return to form or a full retreat. Some insiders say 50 is prepping a response, a power move, maybe a documentary, maybe a full-on diss. Others say he's been advised to let this one go, that pushing against the legacy of BMF, especially when Ross has the streets right now, would only make things worse. The irony? It all started because 50 couldn't resist a jab. Years ago, one line meant to discredit Ross is now the reason Ross is winning, because Rick Ross never had to pretend to be. Big Meech, he just paid his respects and let the real ones do the rest. And now, as the smoke clears, fans are starting to ask one final question: is 50 Cent still the king of hip-hop drama? Or did he just become the cautionary tale of what happens when you chase a legacy that was never yours to begin with? The diss came back, the respect shifted, and the bosses, they spoke loud and clear. Was 50 Cent wrong to use Big Meech's name all those years ago just to clown Rick Ross? Or did the real problem begin when he tried to claim that same legacy for himself, years later, without earning the respect of those who actually lived it? The streets remember, the family remembers. And Ross, he might have taken the L in the moment, but the long game looks like he just won it. Let us know in the comments, was this karma or just hip-hop evolution? Hit that like button if you're here for the real stories. Subscribe for more breakdowns of rap's wildest beefs, and don't forget to ring that bell, because in this game, what's quiet today might explode tomorrow. Stay tuned, because in hip-hop, legends fall fast, then they fall hard. Fall hard.